Let me introduce the panel here very quickly and just welcome to the stage here our Building Transformations Chief Data Officer, Mark. And then we have Robert here and Brian and Fanny. I'll let you all introduce yourselves here and then get to a conversation around this owner-centric discussion on building smarter. Thank you and welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Fanny Angeles. I'm the BIM manager at Intel. I support mostly research and development sites in the US. Go ahead.
Robert Brown, Senior Project Control Systems Manager, DFW Airport. I run all construction technology under our Infrastructure and Development Division, under our Control and Analytics Department.
Brian Barth, Texas Department of Transportation. I'm the Deputy Executive Director for Program Delivery, so I'm responsible for project delivery all over the state. I spent most of my career up in the DFW area in Roberts area, in both our Dallas and our Fort Worth districts, and now I'm leading our program statewide. Welcome to Texas.
I'm Mark Cici. I'll be the moderator. I'm Principal and Director of Design Technology at the architecture firm HOK Architects, based out of Toronto. Largely work on major projects. So this panel is actually of personal interest to me, as I was saying earlier to my panelists, in that I work a lot with owners and clients. Well, we're working with you guys right now. On these sorts of projects. And so I actually have a really real vested interest in understanding a lot of the decisions that drive you guys in terms of internally how you're structured, how you adopt and work with both the engineering and design teams as well as the contractors, and what drives requirements and how you guys are set up internally, structurally, to do that, and to what degree you might be established to that effect. So I'm going to let each of you kind of respond to that statement and tell us a little bit about how you guys functionally work internally and what your departments look like in terms of digital process and project delivery.
So I'll start. So we're organized across Texas in 25 districts. Those 25 districts, each one of them is responsible for all things TxDOT in that area, the design, construction, operations, and maintenance of the TxDOT facilities. And then we have about 30 divisions. Most of those divisions are housed here in Austin, and they kind of they have very specific responsibilities on policy and standards and things like that. So the digital delivery program is housed in our design division. We are, I would say we are taking a very deliberate approach to transitioning to digital delivery. We're taking a very deliberate approach because we want to bring industry along with us. I think a lot of industry is ahead of us. We know that, but there are some parts of industry that aren't. And even in, when we start talking to contractors about, the model being the legal document, even contractors that appear to be way ahead of us using 3D models in the field, their estimating departments aren't caught up yet. And so we're working through that with industry. But our main goal is to eventually get to the point where we've got your favorite word, a digital twin of the whole system that we then can use for asset management and the whole program being digital and working towards that end.
I'll let you guys respond. Just by the way, that comment was sarcasm in case anyone didn't catch that. But I'm trying on the words, or the acronym, let's call it OLM, so Operational Lifecycle Management, as opposed to using the word digital twin, because I just think it's more representative of the functional aspect of what it represents. Go ahead, sorry.
My situation a little bit different. Like I say, I'm from DFW Airport. We have 7 runways. Right now, we're the 3rd busiest airport in the world, and If you're in aviation, we're not good at that status, so we want to get that up. But there's another stinking airport on the other side of town that's kind of stopping that. I won't say no names for all you people that like to ride Southwest. I'm sorry. But we have a journey that we're on, and we want to get to 100 million passengers a year. So in order to optimize that out of 6.5 terminals, 7 runways, we have to make sure that the advances that we're using on the design, construction, and operation and maintenance are all optimized. And so out of what we're doing, trying to get to like full out digital delivery, we're pretty much there, but there is, as we'll get to talking today, there are some hiccups that expose some things that make you have to go back and fix some things in order to keep that route going. So as we're talking today, y'all hear some things that I'll hopefully can bring out that can help us all kind of understand, even in the aviation market, what we're expecting out of digital delivery.
So I think at Intel we're phasing it a little bit differently, and I think we're maybe a little bit behind the curve in terms of constructing and developing a global BIM effort. 3 years ago, they started creating a new group that was called Digital Transformation, which wasn't including much BIM. It was mostly tools and how to help everyone develop tools and also test and deploy tools that's from the outside world. And about a month ago, I would say, we have now all BIM managers have been brought together under one service. But until there, it was up to each project to just decide and hire a BIM manager if they wanted to have any BIM support. So everything's very recent, and right now we're ongoing gathering what each site is doing, what is good, what their lesson learned, and try to develop and globalize standards and methods.
So I'm going to follow that up with a question. You know, I've seen a lot of contractors here. Are there any like architects, engineers? If you could like raise your hand. Okay, wow, that's
What?
we're in a minority, a vast minority.
Come on,
And
man, put
It's
your hand
rare.
up high.
Yeah, I
Be
know.
proud about
Usually
it.
it's
Yeah.
Around.
So who are the
I guess the question that I want to ask is, you know, there's kind of this notorious wrestling back and forth on the, let's call it the design and construction side of the fence. As owners, you guys are on the other end of that, right? Because you are essentially, through RFPs and other various means, going to the street to say, hey, we need to do this thing, come to us with some solutions and possible costs, and then you evaluate your options and you kind of move forward, right? That's the traditional way. I mean, there are competitions in other ways. But as a result of that working relationship, owner with contractor design team, obviously contractually that changes the dynamics significantly. The question that I'm really interested in about is, you know, there was a notion at some point in history that, you know, digitization of an analog process would enhance the output and outcome. That wasn't necessarily the case, so we kind of thought, okay, well, if we add a third dimension and we work in the world of BIM, right, well, then things have to be coordinated, and it must be a great place to be. As we kind of coordinate these things, we all know that there is a different level of standard for different people who offer services. Hanu, I'm looking over at him even though he's on his phone, because we have these conversations quite frequently from our side of the fence to say an architectural or an engineering model and a construction model are not all created equal. So I'm wondering from your guys' perspective if you've actually noticed this, but more so, where is the value in that three-dimensionally coordinated model for you, right? Specifically, that's kind of the first part. And what, if anything, have you guys set up internally to leverage any perceived value in that, or are you aiming to establish, to create value for your company out of that coordinated model, assuming it's what you need or want, or what is it that you desire that it lacks? I don't know who wants to take that one first.
Well, I'll try. So, and maybe to start to answer that, I'll take you back a little bit on our path. So 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, we made the decision to convert to all 3D design. And so that, that really forced a lot of, we all use CAD for design, but because you were going to print it out on a piece of paper, you didn't have to really follow a whole bunch of standards and have disciplines on what was on what level and that kind of thing. So 3D design really forced us to be disciplined in that regard, and standards and what's in the model and that kind of thing. And the real value that we got when we went to 3D design was, we really then could locate, for example, utility conflicts. It used to be we'd put together 65% plans and send them to utility companies and ask them to identify all their conflicts. Sometimes they got their conflicts, sometimes they didn't, and a lot of times we found them out in the field. So 3D design and subsurface utility engineering really helped us identify those things and get those things cleared before we went to construction. But we weren't, and we really still aren't, sharing those models pre-bid with our contractors. And that's really our next step, is that we're going to get to the point where we're comfortable that we've got the discipline on those models, that we can share them pre-bid with our contractors who are bidding on our projects. We'll still produce a set of plans, but they're going to have the model that they can plug into their systems and do their takeoffs and estimating. But we are moving towards, we just did our first pilot project that was all digital, where the contract documents, the legal documents were the 3D model. And that just let a few months ago, and we were a little worried that we wouldn't have a lot of competition. I think we got 6 or 7 bids, which was really good, and so far the construction is going really great. The next step is we've got our field guys ready on one project. We got to get our field guys ready system-wide to be able to handle inspecting a project using models. So I think that what's important to us and what we found is important. So there's you would think we'd get there quicker because all the technology is there, but the industry is slow to change, and when you're a public entity, depending on industry to give you good prices and that kind of thing, you can't leave folks behind. You really got to be deliberate with industry and make sure industry is ready to move forward with you. And so we're going to do a couple more pilots in the next year or two to bigger and bigger projects and more complex projects on this march or on this path to digital delivery. We hope to get to the point where we then have a usable digital model that we then can use for asset management and things like that. I don't know if I answered your question, but I tried.
Sorry, yes you did. I mean, on that, before you respond there, Rob, I was just going to say, we're having a lot of internal discussions about what it means to have model as a contract deliverable. I think it's actually a long time coming, to be perfectly honest. We're often not asked by the owner for it because they themselves are not set up to digest it and actually leverage it, right? But this is what's so fascinating for me about you guys and what you're about to say, is the fact that if we're having this conversation, it's actually kind of exciting to be at a point now where model as a contract deliverable is an actual possibility. it's really cool.
We've done it once.
I gotta say, this the first time I've actually got on a panel and acted so nice. So this is crazy to me here. But our journey, if you think back, like I said, I come from a land survey background, and 2011 we started with our first big terminal program, and it was BIM, and it was nice, pretty pictures. There was no program, nobody knew what to do with it. And as you know, in this industry, what you do back in the day, you can't hide your sins, they're gonna come back, okay? So in 2017, when they asked me to take over the program, coming from land survey, first off, I had no idea what BIM was. Sometimes I still don't, but that's different. But I didn't know what BIM was. And so we piecemealed a standards document and put it out there. 2018, they come through, hey, let's do a digital twin. I know I don't like it either, and once again, here I go, what is that? So you can imagine at that time what I was feeling, and trying to head up a brand new program that I knew nothing about. Digital delivery was kind of in the mindset of my executive staff, but nobody understood it. Well, as time went on and got a little bit more educated, we got a little bit more bought in to what we were doing, and started our next iteration of bringing a digital twin platform provider. Of course, that changed everything. It changed everything we were doing, because once we got BIM models, knowing that we have an operation and maintenance department, we had to figure out how to make those flow together. And so if you don't look at the end of the tunnel and fix that throughout the process, then you failed. Now, mind you, there's still some failures. There's a lot of exposures that happened as we got into that process on some projects that made us our lessons learned and made us have to do some different revisions on standards, enact different things to make digital delivery better. It's funny, I was talking to some of the guys today, and we just did about a 6 to 9 month standards revision again, where we went out and we read the NIB standards, the FAA standards, the ISO standards, where we have them created this matrix of what is it that we're asking contractors, tenants, and everybody to do? Is it fair and honest? And so we have a new revision that's coming out called Revision 25 of our standards. And all of this digital delivery and all the things and the pain points that we're seeing on the owner side, where we want our operation and maintenance to be more proactive versus reactive. Those are the type of things that we had to really, really look at, still looking at on a daily basis, on how do we solve that? How do we make the data from that BIM model into the digital twin, into that operation and maintenance? How do we make that to where we can come up with proper statistical values on how our units are functioning throughout all seasons? So still a lot of work to do, and like I say, I'm gonna let Fran go, because I could talk all day about this stuff here. So.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say to that, I think what's really kind of important is just like, it's a business, right? So you need to evaluate what the need or what the value is for the business. So if you're thinking about a building as a living thing that you're tracking, what are the aspects or elements of that actually, whatever it is, whether it's a revenue driver, whether it's moving people faster, getting more planes in your specific use case, whatever that business need is. I find it interesting that that's like the perspective you come at it is pretty.
And I do want to say also, I have a team of 20 people that work for me. And some of our requirements are, one, we get the as-built model and we get the record model. We want both of those. Yeah, which, as we've enacted some of this on your program, but when you got programs like what we're doing at one of our terminals, where you got 7 different programs of that terminal, and you want everybody to use the same base point, survey point, things like that, and things, each one has to tie in together. That's not easy. It's not easy with those complexities. Modules moving all the way across the airfield, it's kind of tough. So being able to bridge all of that into one, it's tough. So with my 20 people, they're working hard. They're working really hard, and it's still hard for them.
All right. So what do we do at Intel? I think Intel started to mandate 3D modeling and deliverable around 10 years ago, and progressively to every project. So now there's no question everything needs to be in 3D model. In terms of the tool, we mandate certain tools, and there's still a lot of discussion on that side on where we want to go for also us maintaining our models, like Revit versus Hexagon, for example. So I think that's still a big discussion right now at Intel. In terms of coordination, in my career, I worked on any type of building. I worked from monastery to schools to offices and hospital. Intel factory, it's just, even people that think they know, as long as you haven't walked one, you don't understand the mess of, I mean, it's probably an organized mess, but when you walk through, it's just 50 or 70% of the 3D space is packed with duct and conduit and pipe and machine and anything. I'm an architect, so I'm on an MEP world right now. I don't understand what they're doing. There's like, I discovered new discipline, process, and instrumentation. Never heard of that before, honestly. A little bit at hospital, but it's very complex and insane. And I almost wonder how were they doing before without 3D, because it's the level of accuracy that you need to reach to not have problem, which is still difficult. And during design, A&Es refuse to model all conduits that are like below an inch. And we have tons of them. And we clash with a lot of them during construction, but it would take them, a month to finish design if we ask them to model each individual conduit. We have like ways of like just make a big box of 12 conduits in a row, but when you have one lost somewhere, they won't design it. And of course you're gonna clash with that one later on. So we haven't solved every problem, but it does help a lot. And during construction, there's always the question of, is design enough? Is a construction model important? And do we care? I think I don't, I have different opinions depending on the project we work on, but I think at Intel, construction models are highly important. They contain more information. They'll have all of the hangers. And moving forward, I have research and development sites, so those sites are never just cleaned up and rebuilt. It's always little pieces everywhere. We have like 500 projects at any given time. So I can tell you it's all over the place, and we need to know what's happening. And we have sometimes 3 different A&Es working in the same level of the same building. So we do have a certain level of, as an owner, of coordination with those A&Es. So for example, our existing model actually contains the design because it's so close, it's so fast. Other A&Es needs to know what's happening. And other GC, we sometimes have multiple GCs on site. We try to keep them per building, so at least it helps a little bit. It's not always the case. So we're stepping up to help them coordinate all of that. Yeah.
I mean, that's really interesting. What I, kind of as a follow-up to that, just as you guys were speaking, I was thinking, well, you kind of answered the question. I think we saw earlier, too, with the Ohio State presentation, he was talking about the design model is kind of good enough, right? It depends,
and
really.
I think
is the
is
answer
for
at the end of the day.
campus,
What do you need it for, number one?
Why?
And yes, and like, is there an actual legitimate use for it, right? Like which you mentioned, it's like I'm kind of like laughing and smiling at the time when you say like, I can't tell you the number of times I've seen an electrical or MEP drawing where it says anything under 3 inches
Oh, I have
is not modeled, right?
any,
It's just a
any
line.
duct under 3 inch
Yeah.
are not modeled.
Yes.
Duct, there's so many of them. And pipe, duct and pipe under 3 inch, not modeled.
When you look at, say, I mean, this is different than what we're talking about today, but like, say, like plant ops, like in oil and gas or what have you, every single pipe on a rig or something is modeled. Doesn't matter
During
if it's 1
design.
inch. So again, it comes back to the question of like, what represents value for you? I mean, if you don't actually go and say contractually, no, we need you to model the 1 inch pipe.
We tried.
Well, I mean, you could mandate it, but again, it would be reflected in the cost.
Well, they
the
said
fee.
yes, and they
okay.
doubled their price.
Okay, well, exactly, that's
So
what I'm saying.
management was like, no, you're not getting it.
Well, exactly. So it means like you make a calculated decision on value, right? Is what I was coming to, and
Yeah.
I think so. Again, back to the DT words. I
didn't
wonder,
even
like
wanna
maybe you
say
can
it.
project. Maybe you can project for me where. Because you alluded to it a little bit, it's come up a couple of times, but if you may not have a solution or an intention or a strategy or a written plan right now as to what you're going to do with it, maybe you can tell me from your perspective, what do you think? Where do you think it could inform your business or the way you manage your assets in a better way? Like, would it give you an ability to do something you don't do today, or is it just not worth it for you? I'm genuinely curious to know, because a lot of the times what I hear from owners when I talk to them is, everyone always comes into me and says, when a light bulb's out. And and what I hear from the owner is the owner says to me, and I've heard this like multiple times now, we don't care about light bulbs. People have eyeballs. Like, you don't need a computer or a maintenance or a lifecycle management system to tell you I have light bulbs out, because you see them.
No, but you need to know which model it is and where are they stored.
Well, so what I come back to, or what I'm often told, is predictive failure, right? In mission critical systems like an airport, where life safety is a real big thing, or in a plant like you're saying, or even infrastructurally. What comes back to is, and I come back to this notion where I had heard a story from an owner once where they had a massive generator failure where the piston in the generator went through 2-inch thick plate steel and failed. And the power went out for like 3 buildings. If they had known preemptively, like if that generator had been wired up, that's of significant value because it's mission critical. So I'm just curious, from you guys' perspective, what do you see? What value does a digital twin represent, or some aspect thereof?
So first of all, you mentioned a written document. We do have a digital delivery strategic plan. And we just posted this on our website. Actually, a few days ago, we just finished this up. Even though the date says May 2024, but I think that was, that's how long it took to get approval. But so the real value for us is, so we're rarely building greenfield projects. We have some new location projects, but most of what we're doing is expanding our existing system. And if you've gone through the process of digging up all the as-built plans for a section of road that you're looking at and making sure you've got every gap filled, that's a lot of work. It's a lot of time in our as-built library looking for these things. And having a DT, a digital twin, would save all kinds of time when you come back to expand that facility. And in fact, it would save you a bunch of time, and you wouldn't have to do as much surveying up front. You could save a lot of money up front. You could get started quicker. You could start making progress on the design much quicker. So that's one thing we think is a big value. The other value is And I used to tell folks that would try to come in and sell us, that wanted to LiDAR the whole state, that that's good the second that it's done, until that the car runs over a sign or something. So, but I now think that's pretty valuable, because knowing where signs are, knowing where signals are, knowing where drainage facilities are, it is very valuable. And most of those things don't change. There's a lot of those things that do change daily, but most of them don't change daily. And having that model to work through maintenance and operations it's a huge value and benefit. And we're not even close to being there, but some of the models that we do have, some of the as-built models that we do have, are proven very beneficial.
I mean, that's interesting, because I was having a conversation with Fanny beforehand, and I think part of the ecosystem of what a twin represents to some degree is reality capture content, right? For you, it makes a lot of sense, because there's a lot of static stuff that you need to know where it is, and so to have like an open world model of all of that would be exceptionally useful. And you and I were talking, you're like, oh, I don't get it. Why would that be? We were talking about a project of mine, but you couldn't understand why you would record all those layers. And I wonder, like, is that of any value to you? Because the conversation we were having is like cart and horse or chicken and egg sort of scenario. It was, if you have a well-built model, do you need reality capture content? And if you have reality capture content and you can segment and categorize actual elements within that, do you then need a really good model? But I think part of those things are part of that ecosystem of what Twin represents, but there's another layer of actionable content, right? Like it's the connection between what is physically happening in the real world. So it's the reporting of systems in real time, right? So I don't know if either of you want to comment on that, but.
I think you got to take it in parts. You can't get it all in one whack. No owner that I know knows everything that they want use cases out of the gate. So what we looked at is, if we're trying to get to 100 million passengers, what is it of our customer experience could we bring into a digital twin and solve right now? One of the pain points from customers is, one is mobility, and another one is comfort levels. So that told us immediately, if those are big customer experience problems, then let's monitor the HVACs and make sure that they're always either in the right temperature, because as soon as somebody is too hot or cold, man, they ding you on social media, and they tear you up. And in aviation, customer experience, it's another ranking that each airport goes through, so we wanted to solve that. Next, we're in Texas, so we have periods from around, say, maybe May through about October, where your utilities, chiller plants, things like that, man, they're strapped and they're going hard, and they're trying to do something in millions and millions of square foot terminals. So we have to figure out how. We needed something to bring all of that data into one to be able to optimize it. People can look at spreadsheets and things like that, but at some point in time, you have to figure out how to make that come into a system that provides not just you, the layman, but the executive staff, informed information to make those decisions. So we started there. Now, from there, we started to devise different different use cases, but we just said, let's start with the customer experience and let's try to solve that and come up with normative optimized values. Then we can go to the next one.
The other thing that's happening is, you're making decisions based on value, what value you're going to get from this, based on how much it's going to cost you to do it. Right. The cost to do it is going down all the time. So, 10 years ago, we couldn't afford to LiDAR the whole world, but we probably can now.
Yeah, and I think what you were saying about comfort, systems, capacity. Context is key, right? It helps you make better decisions. And like I was saying before, in terms of your business, I mean, it's going to have a massive impact, a positive impact to where you invest your energy to operate and maintain and meet those needs, I guess you could say, to a degree.
I want to go back a little bit on kind of maybe the fundamental of the definition of digital twin. I don't know if it's purely or very well defined today. I don't know if we should redefine it, because I feel like we have this imagination and following up with manufacturing and everything. I felt at one point airplane was used to sell digital twin to the building industry, and it's like, it looks beautiful, but how many of those planes do you have? I have one building, so it doesn't really work the same. So I don't know, it's really the question, like today I would say I have a ton of one-line diagram. And those are the ones that are used to operate my building. Are those one-line diagram a digital twin? Like you said, for the lamp, we don't need to see the bulb where it is, but you need to get that information. Does it has to be 3D? Can it be sort of 3D diagram? Can it be just what we need?
I agree. I think it's, what I was saying before is I think it's the real-time data linked to some sort of visual operational mechanism that lets you know, oh, that 1-inch pipe that is, I don't know, maybe it's water, whatever, cooling, has a hole or is leaking at some point. The pressure is reduced, right? So you know, like at some point that pipe ends up somewhere else that's feeding a piece of critical equipment or not, but you've got pressure loss, so there must be an issue, so you need to chase that through, right? Where does the pressure happen? Does it happen before, like along the line?
And they have a machine that tells you all of that based on a diagram.
Yeah.
And same for hospital, it's all based on the diagram. And I remember conducting early testing 2012 or 13 for a hospital, trying to model and see how we could do it. It's like, does it bring you really something more?
Yeah.
To know the position of those pipes for the functionment of your room?
I 100% see what you're saying, and again, I think this is also one of those questions where it's like, well, it depends, right? Like, if what you operate or own is spatially complex, let's say, and requires spatial reorganization or analysis of some way, shape, or form, like maybe airflow is like a three-dimensional thing, comfort levels, right? That is a three-dimensional thing because it's like CFD, computational fluid dynamics. So it's both air system, it's a two-dimensional thing like distribution in terms of like size and volume, but also like where in space that happens. It may be critical to understanding that. But like you said, in your case, I think you're right in a sense that when we use the term, we tend to think about three-dimensional objects.
And this like complex and push detailed 3D models, it's like, it is the holy grail of the industry right now to see. And maybe, I don't know, 30, 50 years, it'll be, that's just a 3D model, it's just a digital tool. But today, the technology is not ready.
Right.
We can't, even if we want to achieve it, it's just not there. We can produce the model, but we don't have the tool yet, like Maximo is not ready to absorb that model. When maybe it'll be just easy. Hey, here, the designer model, but it's not there yet. So we do have to find, I think we cannot just wait. We do have to find and try to leverage. Now, can we call it digital twin? I think we should be. It's still the same purpose. It gives you prediction. I had a client when I was a consultant before. I had low-income housing, and they had so much asset, and it was all over the place. They did not even try to manage. They would wait for someone to call, telling them the elevator is broken, to fix it. Fixing once it's broken costs so much money. And they wanted like a digital twin just to be able to predict. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with 3D. It's just like,
Yeah.
get a proper, I don't know, even like Excel can help you do that with the proper formula. But it's this idea of like this 3D beautiful, sexy model is going to save your life. I mean, not your life, but your
I know what you mean.
professional life.
So I'll switch gears. I'm gonna go to my last question here for you guys, and I'm sure you all have different answers, but I actually read this one verbatim. What is the one request and or statement you would like non-owners to consider when working with or for you at any point along the way on new projects? What would you like people like service providers, GCs, architects, engineers? What is it, how do you want our frames of mind to be from your perspective in terms of all of the content we've discussed today?
Let's have a conversation on what problem I'm trying to solve. Yeah, I mean, we get people come in all the time and, hey, I got a digital twin, I got this and that. I'm like, you haven't even asked me what I'm trying to solve, and you're trying to sell me something. Let's sit down, let's have a conversation, and I can tell you some of my pain points. Then we can organize a plan, because digital twins, that realm, it's not cheap. It's not cheap, and so if you're wanting to get buy-in executive staff to be able to pay for stuff like that, I mean, you gotta hit them pain points, you gotta hit them hard. If you can't do that, if we can't sit down and talk, then we failed on our communication.
I think it really doesn't have much to do with digital delivery, but I think we partner the best with and have successful projects with partners that share our goals. And most of that revolves around safety for us, but if we share the same goals, if we share the same perspective about those goals, those projects have gone the best and worked the best. So I think it's when we're talking to our consultant partners or our contracting partners, let's get on the same page on goals and what we're trying to accomplish.
I think right now, especially for Intel, there's issue with honesty a little bit. We have a lot of contractor suppliers. When we start a project, they're like, oh yeah, we can do that for you. We'll do it that way. It'll be beautiful. And at the end, it's like, you want what? Record drawings? Nah, we don't have time. No, we said we'll do it beautifully, but yeah, no, we're not going to do it. They've been paid most of everything. And so they'll just give us crap at the end. And it's like, in a way, I don't mind. If you had told me that you'll give me crap at the beginning, that's fine. I'll just reduce that from the price because, and use that for a third party to help you deliver, quality and such. So it's always like, just being honest. If you don't want to do it, it's just, especially, we hire you because you're a designer, or you hire you because you're a great contractor. You're not good at BIM, I don't care. I'll help you, we'll help find third parties, but don't tell me you can do it if you cannot. That is something I'm really tired of.
So it's interesting because, I know we're discussing technology, but it's actually an analog problem, which is communication, which I find ironic because that's the whole point of technology, is meant to actually increase communication, right? That's the whole point of real-time coordination, real-time reporting.
Do you want to know my definition of BIM?
What's that?
Is helping people working together.
Yeah.
This is before technology, before the 3D model. It's like, you can do BIM with AutoCAD. You don't need 3D to do BIM. BIM is how we work together in one team and not just multiple businesses.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because, again, it comes back to that question of what is it that you need versus want. Like, you can discuss anything on planet Earth, like you're saying, Rob, in terms of all of the things you can do, But really, at the end of the day, it's not really what can you do. It's let's discuss what's required, and then what is the best way that provides the most value in a digitally oriented process way that we can meet those needs.
And the communication needs to come from both sides too. I totally understand when I was helping, as a consultant, contractors and engineering, if the owner don't explain the why, on the other side, it's normal that they don't want to do it. It's
Right.
also very important for the owner to get really to the why, to motivate on the other, and it provides, the why provide quality.
I agree. And I think, too, the whole notion of the comprehensive model delivery, if the model were a delivery in the case where you said they walked away with, like, because that's often what we're asked for, because facilities says, just give us 2D PDFs. They just want the drawings, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Liability.
But model as a contract deliverable, there you go.
And so far, they've been paid 90%. So even if it's in the contract, they lose those 10%, they don't care.
Right.
But for us, it's like, but now we're not organized to not receive that. So I'm like, if you didn't care of those 10%, tell me before. And I use those for something.
They want the 10%.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Key takeaways: model is a contractual deliverable. It is possible to under-promise, over-deliver, or tell you when you can't do it, right?
Communication is the
And it sounds
key,
like
yeah.
we are not perfect quite yet, so let's be honest, right?
We all have our strengths and weaknesses.
That's
It's
right.
important to just come with it, and I think it's important for me. I make a point as an owner. I call it. It's almost a shrink meeting with all my suppliers and NGC, and I'm just like, just tell me what's going on. What are you suffering? What do you need? I'm here to help you. I'm here to listen to you.
I gotta
This
say,
is
I've
how
never
we
had
get
that from an
support.
owner.
Okay, well, good. All right, we'll just take just a few minutes for questions, and then we're going to wrap up with our last panel. And for the record, anybody who's still here, I'm going to buy the drinks tonight for sticking around, so thank you very much. All right, hang in there for one more panel.
Right here up front.
Brian, on your project, when the model was the deliverable, what format did you use to deliver, and how did you convey the spec requirements on that?
So we use Bentley, Open Roads, and then ProjectWise. So that's how the model was delivered. And then we have our specs are all, we have a spec book that all of our contracts reference the spec book. So all the standard type drawings were in the model. The project specific standards were in the model, and then the spec book.
All right. Anybody else have a quick question before we wrap it up? All right, let's thank you for the panel. Round of applause.